No one could have predicted that a sparkling necklace, a small accessory at the lavish Elson family party, would become the beginning of a tragic chain of events that completely upended the life of an innocent girl. In that glittering moment, Raya Elson, the well-known but not wealthy heiress, was pulled into a cruel scheme orchestrated by her own cousin Selena. A vicious accusation, a fateful door slammed shut, and from that moment on, Raya lost everything: her reputation, her family, her home. The story seemed to end with a shrug from high society and a short column in Tech Vision Weekly, but it didn't. 5 years later, in the heart of the city, the name Raya Elson resurfaced, this time not as the girl who once sobbed in an interrogation room, but as a cold, successful, and enigmatic woman. Her return brought with it unanswered questions. Who helped her rise again? What secrets are being kept? And can the truth, once buried beneath layers of lies, shatter the flawless masks worn by Selena Victor and the entire Elson family? The shimmering lights cascaded down from crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, casting a soft golden glow on the glamorous evening gowns below. Glasses clinked and lively toasts echoed throughout the grand hall of the Elson estate, where the 50th birthday celebration of Noelle Elson, a prominent figure in the world of finance and technology, was underway. Amid the haughty crowd, Raya Elson, Noelle's niece, appeared in a simple navy blue dress, unadorned, modest. She didn't stand out among the women draped in designer labels, but her eyes were different: sharp, composed, and slightly cautious. Raya hadn't been born into luxury like her cousin Selena, nor was she doted upon like the other family members. After losing her parents in a tragic accident, Raya had been taken in by Aunt Matilda, Noelle's younger sister, under the title of family, though Raya had always known she was an outsider. Selena, her strikingly beautiful cousin with a charming smile, walked up and casually looped her arm through Raya's. "Try to relax," she smiled sweetly. "Tonight you're the center of attention." Her voice dripped with honey, but her eyes flicked over Raya, scanning her as if searching for something. Raya nodded gently, saying nothing. She had always known Selena didn't like her. In fact, that was the unspoken truth of the Elson household: polite, courteous on the surface, but always maintaining a clear distance from the girl who came from a lesser branch. The party buzzed with energy. Entrepreneurs, artists, and high-profile investors arrived one after another to congratulate Noelle. Tech Vision Weekly, a well-regarded tech and business outlet, had even sent a reporter to cover the event. Everyone was eager to look flawless in front of the cameras. But beneath the glitzy exterior, a sinister plan was quietly unfolding. As the jazz music softened and the guests drifted off to enjoy dessert, Selena suddenly let out a shriek. "My necklace! My mother's diamond necklace! It's gone!" The crowd turned. Noelle hurried over, concerned. "Are you sure you didn't leave it somewhere?" Selena gasped. "No, I just took it off to wash my hands, put it in a little box on the shelf. Now it's gone." The air grew heavy. The head butler was summoned. Guests were asked not to leave the premises. A tense search began. And then, as if it had been planned all along, the necklace was found in Raya's handbag. A chilling silence fell over the room. All eyes turned to the young woman, frozen in shock, eyes wide with confusion. What did you do?" Selena gasped, backing away as though betrayed. "I can't believe you would. Over a piece of jewelry. I didn't." Raya shook her head, her voice cracking. "I didn't even know it was there." Victor, the older cousin and current chief legal officer of Elson Group, stepped forward coldly. "This must be handled seriously. Even if it's family, we can't overlook this." Aunt Matilda did not defend Raya. She stood silently, head bowed, avoiding Raya's pleading gaze. The police were called. Under the cold stares of the guests, Raya was taken away like a common thief. News spread fast. Billionaire Elson's niece caught stealing diamond necklace worth $80,000. Photos of Raya in her evening gown, head bowed, hands cuffed, made headlines. Though not criminally charged due to lack of evidence of intent, her reputation was completely destroyed. Tech Vision Weekly, which had once praised Raya for her inspiring university speech, now coldly printed a small line, From Promise to Pitfall, the downfall of Raya Elson. No apology. No one stepped forward to clear her name. Nowhere to go. Raya vanished. 5 years passed. No one heard the name Raya Elson again. But one autumn day at the city's largest convention center, the name resurfaced, this time introduced as one of the mysterious co-founders of Ardent Core, the software company baffling Tech Vision Weekly with its untraceable funding origins. And something even stranger happened at a high-profile charity gala as Selena stood on stage representing the Elson Foundation. Her eyes locked with a familiar gaze from the front row, a stare so familiar it sent chills down her spine. Selena stammered. Noelle stood behind her, face tightening. Raya Elson had returned, but not to ask for forgiveness. It was a Tuesday morning when Tech Vision Weekly's early news broadcast aired announcing the launch of a new data security software called Argus One, a revolutionary advancement in the field of electronic protection. Beneath the headline, Breakthrough Tech from an Anonymous Company, unfamiliar names appeared: Core Technologies, a rising organization that had already signed national-level security contracts with at least 3 governments. Then came a small detail that sent the media into a frenzy. Among the list of founders, the name Raya Elson appeared, accompanied by a quiet note: lead platform architect specialist in biometric data encryption. Selena stared at the screen, the color draining from her face. Victor dropped his coffee cup. Matilda froze at the sight of the name, as if a ghost from hell had just touched the back of her neck. They misspelled the name, Selena stammered. It must be a coincidence. Victor quickly opened the business registration records. No, not a coincidence, not a mistake. It was her. Within less than 24 hours, the tech world was abuzz, digging into the founder with a tainted past of theft. But the deeper they looked, the more they found nothing: a spotless record. Credentials verified by 3 prestigious global institutions. Solid investment ties with major Asian tech firms. All slander quickly silenced by a string of dazzling achievements. And then, like a strike at the heart of the Elson family's pride, a high-profile charity event, sponsored by the Elson Foundation, publicly announced Raya Elson as an honorary guest. The reason? For contributions to public health technology initiatives in Africa. That evening, Selena walked onto the main stage in a white pearl-trimmed gown, wearing her signature aristocratic smile. But when the spotlight spilled onto the front row, she froze. Raya was sitting there. In a simple black suit, her eyes no longer innocent. They were calm and cold, as though watching the person who once buried her alive. Selena's speech stumbled. Her voice turned dry. The crowd started whispering. Someone murmured, "Isn't that the girl who was accused of stealing?" After the event, Raya didn't leave early. She stood in the small garden behind the hall, the same place where Selena once dragged her out to scold her for wearing a dress that wasn't fancy enough. And then a familiar voice called out from behind. "What are you doing here while I—" Selena. Raya turned around, her eyes unreadable. "I was invited." "Weren't you too?" Selena stepped closer, her voice sharp as a blade. "What are you trying to do? Ruin my family in front of the press?" "Your family did that to me when I was 21. Raya said, every word slow and deliberate. "I simply haven't forgotten. We weren't involved. It was a misunderstanding. No one had proof. But I do. Thank you, Selena, for being careless." Raya pulled out a small device, a USB drive attached to a keychain. "I suspected someone set me up that night. Luckily, the hallway security camera in the Elson mansion captured every movement, including the moment you opened my bag and slipped in the small jewelry box." Selena's face went pale. "No one will believe you." "I don't need them to," Raya replied. "I just need one day when every newspaper starts asking why a false accusation was buried for 5 years by a powerful family." She walked away. But less than 48 hours later, headlines exploded. Woman once framed for theft now powers security systems used by FBI, NIS, and Interpol. Tech Vision Weekly, who had once smeared her, was forced to issue a public apology after a social media storm accused them of helping to cover up the defamation of a young woman. A leaked video from the security camera source Unknown surfaced on Twitter showing Selena placing something in Raya's bag during the fateful party. An investigation was launched. Elson Group's stock dropped 14% in 1 week. Matilda resigned from the board. Victor stayed silent. Selena vanished from social media. As for Raya, gloating no loud revenge, she left only one line on her company's website. Truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs time. The Elson Group headquarters still blazed brightly in the heart of the city, but within the hearts of its leaders, darkness had begun to spread. The blow dealt by the name Raya Elson wasn't just a media shock. It was a precise incision into the core of an empire long used to thriving on reputation and control. In the 28th floor boardroom, Victor slammed his hand on the table. She has video footage. One blurry clip was enough to tank our stock. What happens if she has more? Matilda, usually the picture of calm now, sat with her head bowed, uncharacteristically silent. Selena, after days of dodging the press, was finally forced to appear. But for the first time, she was the one being interrogated. "Why did you do it, Selena?" Matilda asked hoarsely. Selena clenched her fists. Then, as if a dam had burst, she screamed, "Because everyone saw her as a genius, as the new hope of the family. She was the illegitimate child, but still better than me. Dad secretly paid for her education. Everyone knew except me. I was left out. Even Victor secretly taught her technical skills." No one responded. The silence was more damning than any verdict. Matilda slumped in her chair. "You chose the cruelest path." Meanwhile, in a small conference room at RE Core Technologies, Raya sat with a team of lawyers and investigative journalists. In front of her lay a thick file, the Raya Elson case, 2018. A woman's voice broke the stillness. It was veteran journalist Anita Chow. "We've confirmed that night the $4 million necklace never actually disappeared. It was transferred that very evening to an insured vault in Switzerland using Matilda Elson's personal security code." Another lawyer continued, "They framed you to force you out of the biogenetic encryption project. You were the lead, but by removing you at just the right moment, the Elson Group secured full patent rights." Anita slid a thick document toward Raya. "And now you decide, publish or forgive." Raya looked at the file, but the memories came rushing back like a tidal wave. She had just turned 21, a fresh graduate newly admitted to the biosecurity project team overseen by Victor. She was like a rising sun in a world long dominated by names shielded by legacy and wealth. But that brightness made her a thorn in the side of Selena, the one who had always been assumed to be the rightful heir. Selena had watched Raya's every move. She discovered that the family's heirloom diamond necklace would be displayed at the party, and in a brief moment when no one was watching, it was Selena, familiar with every corner of the Elson estate, who slipped the jewelry box into Raya's bag. The next day, the police were called, and with one nod from Matilda, the Elson Group's PR machinery moved like a military campaign. They painted a portrait of a baby-faced thief, leaked rumors to the press, bought off an incompetent defense attorney, and silenced every camera, except one copy, secretly saved by Victor at the last minute. But back then, Raya didn't have the strength to fight. Her reputation was shattered, her scholarship was revoked, her name erased from the project. Society pushed her into the shadows. She became invisible to the very people who once praised her. Back to the present. Raya closed the file. She stood up and looked out the window at the city. "I won't release everything now. I'll let them collapse layer by layer under the weight of the truth they tried to bury." A week later, Raya agreed to a one-on-one interview with an international news network. On live broadcast, she shared her story. No anger, no vengeance, just facts sharp as blades cutting through years of lies. The internet erupted. The hashtag Justice for Raya hit #1 globally. Elson Group shareholders demanded an internal investigation. Matilda was summoned. Selena officially stepped down from all positions. The next day, Raya received a message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, it's Victor. I didn't protect you when I should have. If you need my testimony, I'm ready. Raya didn't respond, but inside something began to close, not the wound but the hatred. And now, as the Elson Empire trembled, a new name was rising to global recognition. Raya Elson, a symbol of resilience and proof that the truth cannot stay buried forever. Winter began to frost over the glass rooftops of the city. While many companies were preparing for the new fiscal year, Elson Group was spiraling into chaos. After Raya's explosive global interview, the door they had kept locked for 7 years burst open. The press, the public shareholders, financial investigation committees, and even the scientific community. All eyes were now on an empire once deemed untouchable. But on the top floor of the RE Core Technologies headquarters, where the wind whispered through the glass like a messenger of fate, Raya sat quietly facing a decision that could change the course of her entire life and the lives of those who once pushed her into hell. In front of her were 2 folders. One was a criminal prosecution petition, accompanied by evidence showing that Matilda Elson and her niece Selena had orchestrated false accusations, fabricated evidence, and stolen intellectual property from her 2018 scientific project. 2 was a letter of partnership from Victor, the man who had once stood silent while she was torn apart, now offering to invest in her new project, promising a public apology, full restoration of her reputation, and financial restitution. Her lawyers urged her to choose the first folder. The law must speak. Forgiveness is not the victim's responsibility, they said. The investors whispered about long-term vision, about the opportunity to build a technology empire, bearing her name, unburdened by the scars of vengeance. But the hardest part to confront was her own heart being torn in 2. That night, Raya left her office late without telling anyone. She passed by her old apartment, the place she had been cast out from in shame, and was surprised to see someone standing in front of it. It was Victor. He held a bouquet of white jasmine, the flower her mother used to grow on the balcony before she passed away. "I don't dare ask for forgiveness," he said, "because there are wounds no words can heal. But if you'd let me make amends, in any way." Raya said nothing. She looked at the flowers, then at him. "Why did you stay silent that day?" Victor took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. "I thought, if I stayed quiet, you'd survive. They only meant to cut you out of the company, not destroy you completely. I was afraid if I stood up to Matilda, both of us would be crushed. But I was wrong. Wrong to think you were as weak as I assumed." The cold air made the silence feel suffocating. Then Raya spoke, softly but firmly. "Do you know, for 7 years I lived like someone buried alive. No one believed me. No one wanted to listen. I once wanted to disappear, but then I chose to rise, not to seek revenge, but to reclaim myself." Victor bowed his head, not out of guilt this time, but out of respect. The next day, Raya called for a special press conference. The media flooded the hall, awaiting the moment she would announce her lawsuit against the entire Elson family, an event being called the nuclear bomb of the tech industry. But when she appeared, Raya carried no legal documents. She brought only a single photo, a picture of her mother smiling gently, holding her little girl's hand. Looking into the camera, Raya said, "I hold in my hands all the evidence needed to sue. I have the power of public opinion, the law, and the media. But today I choose not to use it. Not because I am weak, but because I have learned something more important than justice, freedom from hatred." The room fell into complete silence. Raya continued, "I do not forgive, but I will not take revenge. Those who destroyed me will have to live with the truth they once denied. As for me, I will live no longer as a discarded name, but as someone who creates her own future." Applause erupted, not for victory, but for the extraordinary choice of someone who had risen above anger. After the press conference, Matilda, sitting in her empty mansion watching the live stream, silently wept. Not out of remorse, but out of complete defeat by the girl she once called trash unworthy of our bloodline. Selena, who had disappeared for days, finally surfaced at a psychological treatment center. In her statement, she confessed to the entire scheme and took full responsibility. No more excuses. No more prideful glances, just a stripped-down human being facing an irreversible mistake. A month later, Rhea Elson was officially named Inspiration of the Year by the Global Women's Forum. She didn't give a long speech. She left only one line engraved on the honorary chair: "I didn't win because I fought. I won because I didn't let them decide who I am." 1 year after the world-shaking press conference, the name Rhea Elson was no longer linked to keywords like technology scandal, outcast, or wrongfully accused victim. Now she was known by entirely new titles: the most inspirational woman of the year, according to Forbes Women; the icon of resurrection in humane technology, Time magazine; the most visionary CEO of the year, at the Global Technology Conference in Geneva. From a name once erased from every honor roll, Rhea had become a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and the profoundly humane choice between revenge and restoration. But what earned the world's respect the most was not her successful retaliation, but her refusal to retaliate when given the golden opportunity, using limited forgiveness to rewrite the definition of justice. At the headquarters of Aurelia Corps, the corporation founded by Rhea herself, a small bronze statue stood in the grand lobby. It depicted a girl holding a pen, head held high, standing before a fierce wind. Below it was engraved, "Rewrite your destiny through choices unshaped by hatred." Aurelia Corps was not merely a tech company. It was an ecosystem comprising Aurelia Labs, researching AI applications in public health, focusing on developing countries; Aurelia Fund, an investment fund for women-led startups, especially those who have faced social injustice; Aurelia Voice, a free digital education platform for young talents excluded from mainstream academic systems. When asked at the Davos Economic Forum what legacy she wished to leave, Rhea answered without hesitation, "I don't need monuments. I want to leave opportunities for those like me once who were called unworthy." Victor, the man who had remained silent at the most crucial moment of her life, was now the global communications director at Aurelia. But his position was not a favor. It was earned through relentless self-proving. He was the one who proposed reforming the internal recruitment system to eliminate unconscious bias in candidate evaluations. As for Selena, after pleading guilty in court and receiving a suspended sentence, she chose a quiet path of dedication. She went to Kenya to volunteer for an organization protecting orphaned children, a way to atone. She sent Rhea a handwritten letter brief: "You won, because you were not cruel like me, not because you were stronger. I know you don't need forgiveness, but if there is another life, I hope to stand beside you without bowing my head." Rhea did not reply, but in the quarterly financial reports of Aurelia Fund, a discreet donation was regularly sent to the nonprofit Selena worked for. At the grand opening of the Amara Elson Community Science and Technology Center, named after Rhea's mother, she stood before hundreds of children and told a simple story. "When I was little, my mother said, if you have a good seed but are thrown into the mud, don't be sad, because the lotus only grows in the mud." Rhea had bloomed, not on a paved path, but from the very dark mud people tried to bury her in. That year-end, Rhea received a special invitation letter from the United Nations Secretary-General to join as a senior advisor for the Global Humanitarian Technology Program. At the inauguration ceremony, she said, "If back then I had chosen revenge, I would only have proven they were right, that I was as fragile as they thought. But I chose to stand firm, not to surpass anyone, but to stand on my own feet, in a world I believe still has room for justice and compassion." Applause lasted nearly a minute, but beneath the spotlight's glow, Rhea just smiled softly, eyes gazing at the Geneva night sky, where stars never need to shout to be seen. The end. On a peaceful afternoon, Rhea stood on the rooftop of Aurelia's headquarters. The breeze was gentle. The sky was blue. She was replanting a jasmine bush, the same kind of flower uprooted on the night she was forced out of her home. Noel, the man once an instrument in her downfall, now an HR director at a small company stripped of power and prestige, had apologized, but she never replied. Forgiveness to Rhea did not mean reconciliation. It meant refusing to let the past define the future. Her assistant approached quietly. "Sister Raya, your live interview with BBC is about to start. They want to ask you about the journey of resurrection from a cursed name." Raya smiled. "Let them ask. But I will say I didn't resurrect. I never died. I was only buried wrongly beneath others' prejudices." The breeze gently lifted a jasmine petal, like a soul just freed.